Here's a video I made a few months ago. I shot it while I was driving around in the countryside. I kind of shelved it because I didn't think anybody would be particularly interested in seeing it or might find it a bit boring. But as we're all on lockdown now, none of us can drive our cars out in the countryside. So maybe you'll find it interesting and maybe it'll give some people some comfort thinking about when we can get back on the road again. It's kind of my take on the why I drive and the petrolheads videos. I haven't got a drone or anything like that. I haven't quite got their production values yet. But anyway, it gives a little bit of a story into why I got into the Lotus, why I wanted a Lotus, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And you get to see some shots of the Leicestershire countryside as well. So if you like it, please hit the like button. Thanks very much. My first memories of the M100 Lotus Elan were probably when I was about 17, around about the time of taking my driving test. It had just come out and I remember seeing it on Chris Goffey on Top Gear. I had a keen interest in the MX-5 too, of course, but it was the coolness of the Elan and the Lotus brand and its racing heritage that sort of caught my imagination. The first Lotus ownership came some years later, probably influenced by my memory of the Elan. I had an Elise Series 2, which I really enjoyed. I had a bit of a break from sports cars for a few years because of family commitments, but soon started to think about getting something fun for the weekend, and my thoughts of course came back to the M100 Elan. Some of the M100s are coming up to 30 years old now, so I knew I was going to have my work cut out finding a good one. They only made 3,855 of the SE model, which was the main run of the Elans. So when I started looking, the first car that I came across was actually in my hometown of Leicester. It was a Storm Leicester car, which was the Lotus dealership in Leicester at the time. But it was in a bit of a sorry state. It was off the road, it was in a lock-up garage, the steering column was off, but it hadn't sold when it was previously listed on eBay, so I thought I was in with a good chance. But when it was relisted, it went up to quite a high price, which was a bit out of my range, so I missed out on that one. But a few weeks later I saw one for sale at a Lotus main dealer in Hedge End. What was interesting about the car was that it was a later S2, which I thought, until that point, might be a little bit out of my reach. The S2 was the result of General Motors selling Lotus to Bugatti. That was the 90s Bugatti, the Romano Artioli's Italian incarnation of it, when they were building the EB110. The reason the S2 came about was because they had 800 Isuzu engines left over, and Bugatti decided to capitalise on this and make the S2. This car is number 278 of the 800 that were made. This example is a driver's car, really, which I love. It's not perfect, it's got stone chips and various other bits and bobs wrong with it, but it's just great for getting out there and driving with, and lovely for bonding with my dad, working on things when things go wrong, picking up my daughters from dancing, and just driving around the country lanes in the countryside and just really enjoying the car. The motoring press at the time loved how it drove and handled, but the front wheel drive configuration in a sports car was a bit too much to take for some people at the time. But anyone that drives one always tends to be won over quite easily. There are stories of dealerships at the time just giving people the keys and letting them have a drive and letting the car speak for itself. I think I was initially hooked on the Elan because of the glamour of it at the time, but I think now I loved it because of its underdog status. I think that's a very English character flaw that I have. I can't imagine selling the Elan anytime soon. I've become quite attached to it, and hopefully I'll be driving it for many years to come.